We just saw a clip about your relationship with Bob Dylan. Can you tell us a little more about that? And by the way, you do such a in one of the clips from the movie.
Music icon Joan Baez has finally broken her silence about the iconic Bob Dylan.
You know, I have a new reaction now when people say, "What about Bob Dylan?" It is such an honor to have been a part of his life.
After decades of silence, Baez is opening up about the heartbreak between.
You do an impersonation of him,
Yeah.
singing a song which I thought was dead on.
Thank you. Thanks. I used to do it as his old voice.
Yeah.
Betrayal, pain, and passion that fueled their music and also led to their separation.
Life.
The friendship of Bob, his songs, and all the good stuff, and the rest just vanished.
Join us as we unveil these tragic details about Dylan. Bob Dylan and Joan Baez became an unofficial musical duo in the early 1960s. As a team, they encouraged each other in refining their craft and musical talent. At that time, Baez was the singer, while Dylan played the role of the writer, and they were known to perform duets regularly at Baez's concerts. During that period, they were both seen in the industry as quite a force, although a few friends and colleagues allege that Baez and Dylan possibly had strong feelings toward each other. Over the years, details of Dylan's life have been difficult to point out, given his love for myth-making. In one instance, it was reported that he even asked for a scene that never occurred to be added to a movie whose storyline was about his life. So, somehow, it's unclear exactly when Dylan and Baez's relationship turned from just being music partners to becoming romantic. In fact, during an interview, Baez was asked how long they'd been involved, and she replied, asking back if the host meant what period of 3 months it was. Well, according to her, she and Bob Dylan had spent some time together, but she admitted that she honestly did not know what the exact date was. Regardless of when it all started, their relationship is part of the history of a generation in music and the remembrance of past things. Music history is full of stories of rich love tales, breakups, and emotional moments between artists. No doubt, there is no emotion as inspiring as love. Somehow, their love story feels like a joy that seems to inspire their songwriting ability endlessly. At worst, maybe heartbreak is just as good motivation as anything else. In the 1960s, Baez and Dylan were two of music's most influential duos. They emerged as one of the best, using their artistry to spread awareness and tackle social and political injustices. For years, they traveled around attending festivals and many other concerts, singing duets and getting closer and closer. Bob Dylan, who is legally named Robert Dylan, was born on the 24th of May, 1941. He grew in his career to become one of the best American singers and songwriters. Dylan was considered one of the greatest songwriters of all time and has been a major figure in popular culture over his decades in the music industry. Dylan, during his music career, had an estimated figure more than 125 million records sold worldwide and is recognized as one of the best-selling musicians of all time. Dylan's music style was able to successfully add a whole new level of lyrical techniques to the folk music of the early 1960s, especially the addition of classic literature and poetry. At other times, his lyrics were full of political, social, and philosophical themes. As a young child, Dylan was born and raised in St. Louis County, Minnesota. By the time he was 20 years old, he decided to move to New York City to pursue music. Following his 1962 debut album, he went ahead to release his breakthrough album, The Free Willin' Bob Dylan, in 1963, which featured Girl from the North Country and A Hard Rain's A Gonna Fall. His love for political themes made his songs like Blow in the Wind, released in 1963, and The Times They Are A-Changin', released in 1964, anthems for civil rights and anti-war movements. It was reported that Dylan faced a tragedy in 1966 when a motorcycle crash led him to cease touring for 7 years. During this period, he recorded a large body of songs with the band, which produced the album The Basement Tapes in 1975. Joan Baez, on the other hand, was born on the 9th of January, 1941, an American singer, songwriter, musician, and activist. Her folk music often included songs focused on protest and social justice. Throughout her career, she performed publicly for decades and was able to release more than 30 albums. Although Baez is generally regarded as a folk singer, her music also touched aspects of country and gospel music. She started her recording career in the 60s and quickly climbed to stardom. Her first 3 albums achieved gold record status. Baez is recognized as a great songwriter, but most of the time she interprets other people's works, including the likes of the Beatles and Jackson Browne, among many others. She was one of the first major artists to record the songs of Bob Dylan in the early 60s. At that time, she was already an internationally celebrated artist and did much to popularize Dylan's early songwriting efforts. However, as time went by, her relationship with Dylan became the subject of pain and led to the release of a few songs alongside lots of public speculation. Let's get into the details of how it all started. In the course of their careers, Bob Dylan is often considered the ultimate and best folk star, but Joan Baez was there right before him. Her career was brought to the limelight in 1959 after her iconic appearance at the Newport Folk Festival left crowds extremely excited and in shock. Baez first met Dylan in April 1961 at Gerd's Folk City in New York City's Greenwich Village. By this time, Baez had already released her debut album, and her popularity as the emerging queen of folk was on the rise. When they first met, Baez was only impressed with one of Dylan's first compositions, Song to Woody, and she went ahead to mention that she would like to record at the Newport Folk Festival. They both performed the Dylan composition with God on Our Side, a collaboration that set the stage for many more duets in the months and years to come. As she got up on stage with Bob Gibson for a duet, people were instantly shocked by Baez's angelic folk sound and the sweet tone of her voice. That legendary performance earned her the nickname the Barefoot Madonna, instantly making her the new star of the music industry. Bob Dylan and Baez's meeting in 1961 occurred just after Baez's first albums had been a huge success. She invited Dylan, who at the time was a new folk artist, to open for her on tour. Each night, as he played his own set, Dylan would then regularly join Baez for a duet of one or another of their songs. She was so much into introducing him to the world that, from that time on, for the first few years of their working together, they were often found sharing a microphone at festivals around the world. Then, about 8 or 9 years ago, I was painting his portrait when I put on his music. All of a sudden, everything clicked, and that old feeling came rushing back. In one instance during an interview, Dylan mentioned that he had always liked singing and playing with Baez. He talked about how their voices blended so well and how they could sing just about anything and make it work. To him, it always sounded good, and he felt the sounds they made were special. Together, their music also sounded good to her too. Their deep love and admiration for one another and each other's music was born during this time. During her 1962 live album Joan Baez in Concert, she did the first recorded cover of one of Dylan's songs. Ever since that recording of Dylan's song, Don't Think Twice, It's All Right, she has recorded many other songs by him. However, things took a different turn for Dylan and Baez. While Baez had introduced Dylan to the world, his star rose high and fast, quickly exceeding Baez's place in the industry. Dylan took over the music scene, and it was just a matter of time before he surpassed the fame and rise that Baez had initially helped him achieve. By the mid-1960s, Dylan was one of the most famous musicians on the planet, inspiring even huge artists like the Beatles. While the pair had previously been on a level playing field, sharing the stage and the spotlight, Dylan was soon racing off on his own. At this point, it was revealed that Dylan became extremely hooked on his own success. He became increasingly blind to those around him, and the pressures of his sudden rise to fame and attention led him to neglect his relationship with Baez. According to Baez, during an interview, she mentioned that at that time his fame happened so fast and was so huge that she got lost in the shuffle. Dylan also admitted to it, saying that he was trying so hard to deal with the madness that had become his career, and unfortunately, Baez got swept up along the way. He went on to state how he felt very bad about it. By the time of Dylan's 1965 UK tour, their relationship had slowly begun to fizzle out. Baez later described this phase as a tragic period that broke her heart. Baez wrote and composed at least 3 songs that were specifically about Dylan. However, it wasn't just Bob Dylan's sudden success in his career that further tore them apart. Let's unveil other tragic details that took place. It was revealed that by 1965, Dylan secretly married Sarah Lowndes, who was pregnant with their first child. The news of their wedding and relationship came as a total surprise to Baez, not just because she had deep feelings for him or because of her singing connection to the music artist, but because he had never wanted commitment like that, all through the period they were together. Sometime in 1965, just a few months before the news of his wedding was announced, Dylan mentioned in an interview that he didn't think about things like marriage. That wasn't all. To add to the pain Baez felt, Dylan's decision to marry Lowndes was a result of his desire not to be overshadowed by his partner. One time, during an interview, Dylan was so appreciative of Baez, saying that from the start he loved Baez's soprano voice and her cotton-picking guitar style, and how much he was honored by Diamonds and Rust, which was Baez's bittersweet tribute to their love affair. However, there was a time when Baez had to resent Dylan. She described how he didn't even think of inviting her on stage while they were in England, to at least return the favor she gave his early career when he appeared at her concerts. Baez even mentioned that she didn't want to boost for just the sake of her music career. Rather, she wanted the emotional acknowledgement that she thought she deserved from Dylan. Baez also revealed in detail how Dylan rejected the openly political role she wanted him to play, which she had played out herself. She explained further how, looking back, she would never have insisted on that, as the relationship and the expectations she had for it had long since faded. Years went by, and the political issues of the time became increasingly confusing. As a result, it seemed Dylan's approach turned into a better career choice. Baez also went further to admit that she regretted the resentments her political commitments created in her son, and said she was ready to act and do things differently. However, she emphasized the fact that this was who she was, and that she couldn't have chosen otherwise. One of the single most surprising images of Baez came from a 1975 Rolling Thunder Revue concert tour, which reunited her with Dylan and a host of 60s musical figures. She was seen laughing and dancing a sweet, funny dance. This was a part of her that many had never witnessed before. It was rumored that she had suppressed this side of herself in favor of her pursuits and status. In another instance, while they were both in England for a tour in May 1965, Baez had to write a letter to her sister describing how things were falling apart between herself and Dylan. Baez mentioned that Dylan had become so hard to manage that she couldn't stand being around him. She also added that everyone traveling with him was not fine with his reactions while he was having his frequent tantrums. Before then, she knew that at least some of his anger issues before shows were related to his unusual version of stage fright. She mentioned that, as a person, he never had the traditional stage fright the way she did. Rather, he was always firm when writing songs, but would turn into a totally different person when it was time for any performance. She even went further to state an instance where his little coat was stolen during the English tour. The coat suddenly disappeared just before the show. However, she and the team members were confused as it was unclear which of the coats he was referring to, as a few seemed to match the general description he gave. Baez revealed that, in reality, whichever coat it was, she hated it. During that time, most of his coats were usually filled with vomit stains and had this horrible smell. Plus, the sleeves were too short, but Dylan loved it. While speaking, she went further to mention that she wouldn't be surprised if, to this day, Dylan thought that she must have been the one who stole it, although Baez, on the other hand, was working on him getting rid of that jacket. When he noticed that it had disappeared, he lost his temper and started acting like a child, screaming at the police, their entourage, and everyone around him. Baez and the rest of the team concluded that his anger was related to the tension of performing that night. The entire team was extremely scared the way he reacted, except for Baez. She recalled how she had to talk to him to calm him down, and he was eventually able to give a brilliant performance that night. Baez also revealed that she wasn't interested in taking substances as a music star, and as such, it made her feel so disconnected from other musicians, including Dylan. It was revealed that when Dylan was confronted about his decision to get married to Sarah Lowndes and why he chose her instead of Baez, he responded by saying that he made that choice because Sarah Lowndes would be home when he wanted her to be home. She'd be there when he wanted her to be there, and she'd do things whenever he wanted her to do them. He went further to state that Joan wouldn't be there when he wanted her to, and she wouldn't do it when he wanted her to do it. There's no doubt that Bob Dylan wanted more of a traditional wife, not the barefooted, free-spirited one Baez had been. Madonna, who was also a music star, the Baez and Dylan story is an extended one that never truly seems to end, as they forever remain in each other's creative minds. Truthfully, Dylan and Baez's reactions to the movie about Bob Dylan's life perfectly show some striking details about their life and personalities. Bob Dylan's 2024 biopic, titled A Complete Unknown, centers around his early days in the music industry and establishing himself as a folk music hero. The movie depicted just how Baez helped Dylan enter the scene in the early 60s, having established a successful career as a musician and activist in her own right. Dylan went electric, which was like a one-way ticket to his international success, while Baez, on the other hand, preferred a hands-on role in the scene. She was an activist as much as she was a singer, and her belief that Dylan took an opposite approach eventually led to the end of their relationship. The pair effectively separated from one another following a bad reunion tour in the early 1980s, and that was the end of it for Dylan and Baez. There's no doubt that one would expect Bob Dylan to play a larger role in the development of the movie than Joan Baez, who was just to be a support in the film and Dylan's life. Still, the two artists' differing reactions to the movie just show the differences in their personalities. Dylan, for example, was able to maintain a very mysterious presence throughout the film's production. During production, it was reported that he never spoke to Timothée Chalamet, the actor who played the role of Bob Dylan. Aside from that, when he was to provide creative input, some of his suggestions included putting scenes in the film that never happened in real life. Monica Barbaro, who played the role of Baez in the Dylan biopic, called Baez to discuss the film with her. According to Barbaro, Baez was not angry about the film. Barbaro even mentioned that at some point, she was more concerned about Baez than she was for herself. She went further to mention how she even told Baez that she deserved her own biopic and how it could have many different chapters of her life. In response, Baez told Barbaro that she was just going to sit in her backyard, watching the birds, nothing more. Baez's indifferent response to her former colleague's biopic is a testament to her entire career. It was reported that she eventually traded her guitar for a painter's easel and has pursued visual art and social justice causes ever since. It took several years for Joan Baez to finally find the right words for her feelings towards a split with Dylan. Following Dylan's wedding to Sarah Loons, thoughts of Dylan still didn't leave her mind, her heart, or really even her life. Even after his marriage, their ties still kept them within each other's space, but in a painful way. As the years went by, Baez thought a reflection on her relationship and personal life in the song Diamonds and Rust. As the verses go on, she talks about Dylan's fast-rising celebrity status and the way it changed him, and how she was made to feel inferior by him, calling him the unwashed phenomenon who burst on the scene already a legend. This was more a hint about how she introduced him to the world, but the song is as sad as it is savage. Even years after Dylan's marriage, Baez was still begging for the memories to fade. In the final moments, she prayed for a way to stop all the reminders of what they could have had. In her song, she mentions that she needed some of that vagueness now, as it all comes back too vividly. Clearly, how she loved him dearly, and if he's offering her diamonds and rust, she had already paid well. Dylan's secret marriage and all that took place after his rise to stardom wasn't the end of the duo. Let's get into the details of what took place after his secret marriage. By the break of 1975, Baez joined Dylan on his Rolling Thunder review. This felt more like their iconic friendship was revived, with some fans and colleagues thinking that a romantic relationship was also going to take place afterward. It was revealed that during the tour, the two of them would usually laugh and make jokes, and most times, Baez would pull pranks on Dylan, and then they would magically return to their singing. It was also revealed that at one point they even had a conversation about Dylan's secret marriage, where Baez asked him what would have happened if they had ever gotten married. In response, Dylan mentioned that he married the woman he loved. Reflecting on the whole drama that went on in their relationship, Baez called it demoralizing, but after that, she revealed that she has been able to fully find forgiveness. According to her, they were stupid, and there was no way she would be able to totally blame somebody forever. Although she did try at some point, she had to stop. She went on to state that all it took was some form of art therapy. She even mentioned how one day she put on Dylan's music and picked up her brushes to paint a portrait of him. While the music was on, she burst into tears, and by the time she was done with the painting, she had no form of animosity or resentment left. Since then, it has remained that way for her. Baez said that she was angry with Dylan for years after their split, coupled with the fact that on the 1984 tour, he treated her coldly. She said she stopped blaming him for the relationship, though, and that she would continue to sing his music in concert. According to her, they're the easiest and most pleasurable songs to sing. Additionally, she added that the song she wrote about their relationship, Diamonds and Rust, is what she considers her best song. She also revealed that very good stuff comes from deep down, and that was how strongly she was affected by Bob Dylan in the relationship and everything that went sour between them. At least that the only thing to come out of that relationship was the best song of her life. Then she had to accept that fully. Baez once revealed that she was totally crazy about Dylan, and back then, they were an item and were just busy having a wonderful time. She also mentioned that aside from all the other tragic details, she believed their relationship came to an end mostly because she wanted him to continue writing political music, while he, on the other hand, wanted to move away from protest songs. Joan Baez's revelation of the tragic details of her time with Bob Dylan paints a painful picture of how two deeply imperfect, yet brilliant and talented artists, whose relationship was defined by both passion and pain, can go their separate ways. The wild romance between these two was as sweet as their duets, although the scars and pain of their love stories still linger to this day. While their story may be one of heartbreak, it also shows how the enduring power of music can fully capture the beauty and tragedy of the human experience. Their story may have ended in heartbreak, but the songs they created together will forever reveal their unique chemistry and how they could create the best songs during their time together. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.